So good so far. Eliminations have been the pivotal point of competitive Free Fire, and it has produced some of the craziest games we've seen.
We're incentivized to make sure that you guys get action, and the only way to do that is through eliminations. But in case there is tiebreakers, we got our tiebreaker rules, which is in the following order: number of booyahs, total eliminations, and finally survival rank for the final round.
And so far, we haven't had the need to apply tiebreaker rules, but just in case, if our teams get too good one day, we will have to come down to this. And that's why eliminations are extra important, because that would make the difference between a team qualifying and dropping out of contention. With that being said, we also are applying the one unique active skill rule, where every player has to use an active skill, and each player in the team needs to use a different active skill, with the exception of duplicates being from in-game pickups.
Now, only introduced within this year, it's already shaken up the Free Fire meta when it comes down to your just active use cards and also just your raw setups. The roles are a lot more defined this time around, coming into this first year of the one unique active skill meta, and it's been a lot of fun. Now, the Grand Finals format. For those of you who don't know, Champion Rush is still in play. Teams with 80 points or 80 plus points enters the Champion Rush. And to win the Champion Rush, you must find a booyah immediately after achieving those points. If no team gets a booyah in the Champion Rush by game 10, the highest points in the overall standings will become champion.
So one way or another, we will crown a champion by the end of the Grand Finals. And if any of you guys out there have watched EWC, you know what Peak Champion Rush Grand Finals is all about. Today's team list will be from Group B and Group C. From Group B, we have Onyx Olympus, Toda, PE Sports, Feral, Evos Divine, WAG. And for Group C, we got Team Flash, Bigatron by Vitality, Expand, God of Wolf, Team Falcons, and Kagendra.
It's really exciting to see some of these newer teams and newer faces even start to show up here in the esports World Series. I think that at least we've seen a lot of Group B already itself, and honestly some pretty shocking performances overall. In case you guys who haven't been a little aware, Todak is currently sitting in the second spot, surprisingly enough, but let's see whether or not that's going to progress, because teams like PE is also known to do pretty well in the beginning stages of the tournament.
Yeah, and PE Sports, in fact, have, I think, surprised a lot of people just with their opening debut. We also cannot forget about our spring champions, Onyx Olympus, who have made a slight roster change with, Putra and Calvin TZ coming in as the new players. But for teams like Evos, who literally came off a 300 grand esports World Cup win, they keep the same roster. And then you have Bigatron, who also made some changes, with Juan and Rin coming in as the new faces. Overall, it's a good mixed bag of veterans and newbies, with Kagendra being the newest addition.
Obviously, we've also got Falcons, the ones that we thought were going to be favored coming into our last international at the EWC, but unfortunately didn't go all the way. They did put up a strong performance, and they haven't really changed their lineup at all still, and of course, not forgetting Peter this time.
Yep. Thankfully, he has been funnily enough, I think even during the recent All-Star Ninja Clash, there was a content on Team Falcons, and once more Peter was forgotten.
Oh, no!
In fact, they labeled Limit as on fire, so it was pretty hilarious, but it's good to see that, Falcons are still sticking together. They have a lot to prove, especially, after EWC in front of the home crowd, where they didn't even qualify for Grand Finals. This fall season is going to be in the redemption arc.
It definitely is, right? And now, again, I'm going to be saying hi to all the newer members after watching EWC, and the ones closest to our time zone, Bangladesh, and as well as Sri Lanka and India. Hello to all the viewers out there who are just tuning into the show. Hopefully our map 1 is going to be interesting. Oh, which reminds me, keep in mind, everybody, that the maps every single day is going to be randomized, so we don't really know what the order of which the maps are going to be coming out in.
Ever since the introduction of Solara, we have already gotten rid of the randomizers to ensure that we get a unique experience every single day. But the fact that the sequence is randomized makes it even more exciting, because teams now have to really prep for multiple different kinds of scenario, right? We're so used to starting with Bermuda, so teams come in with the classic opener, but right now we could start with Solara, and some teams might be thrown off their game, and hopefully that's not going to be the case. It's good to see, Evos Divine just feeling a lot more confident. As always, the atmosphere looks pretty good. We got the new flavored Red Bull can on the desk of the players as well. As you can see, both of them are pretty tasty if you're into low sugar content, zero sugar content, in fact, for energy drink.
I think that's what everybody's been looking out for, right? What exactly is the energy drink that's not going to raise my calorie count too much, but still helps me progress through my day without having to resort to coffee? Now, overall, for the Free Fire World Series Southeast Asia, we have seen teams be extremely aggressive, but I don't know whether this is going to be a repeat of spring, right? Which is my biggest worry. Are we going to see any big meta shifts within this small time period, or is it purely just refinement?
I think for now it's primarily on refinement. We did have patch OB50. There were some minor changes that I don't necessarily think had too big of an impact overall. And sure, you know, one of the more sought after guns, the M590, did get a bit of a tweak, slower reload time, but higher threshold for minimum damage, so it demands more accuracy from the users. But overall, I think it's still going to be the gun to go for if you're not using the M1887. Aside from that, you got the usual AWM. I think the variety probably comes from the one unique active skill, right? Like, we had so many different combinations of team comps. Some teams are using Steffi, some teams, like the Brazilian teams of Lost, tend to stick to Tatsuya, even though the rest of Southeast Asia have moved on from that character. And it's a matter of how much more can the teams explore.
Well, speaking of exploring, our game schedule for today, we're going to be having 6 full maps, starting with Nextera, then Purgatory, then Bermuda, Kalahari, Solara, and then we end on Alpine. So, interestingly enough, we're not going to go with our usual format of the Bermudas into Purgatories. Nextera, the city of the future, to kick us off for today.
And that is, I think that itself is a very good neutral point to start. A lot of the teams are used to the classic maps, like Bermuda, you know, the usual Bermuda, Purgatory and all. But Nextera is always one of the few maps I think that most teams generally don't have too much of an advantage over others, except maybe for Bigatron by Vitality. They are a lot more comfortable on Nextera. But in the broader scheme of things, most teams usually achieve neutral results on that map, and it's a good way to shake things up for the start of day 2.
Yeah, and that's, you know, speaking of which, Solara is now becoming part of, like, the staple lineup of the 6 itself. It's going to be a map that a lot of teams are going to have to get good at some point. It's not like a surprise map to be expected. But hey, with that being said, with everything that has been on, it's time to start making our way into our very first map to kick off day 2 here at Free Fire World Series Southeast Asia fall season. We're already looking ahead of time. We're heading over to the city that primarily focuses on it, Nextera.
It's the next generation of architecture and technology. Most importantly, we also are able to have these players showcase the latest collaboration with your favorite childhood anime, Naruto. So if anyone is a fan of that anime, this is a great time to be a Free Fire fan. Drop spots haven't really changed though, although for Evo's heading to Graph Lab, that is definitely a bit of a development since last time we saw them at EWC.
Yeah, a bit of a change up here. Intellect Center going to be taken by BTR. PR has taken Museum, and now we're looking for teams who are immediately going to get into collisions with each other. It's going to be Kagendra alongside WAG.
A lot of times for newer teams that show up, they usually still get to take time to get used to these common drop spots, but Kagendra off to a decent start, ended up trading bodies and losing one of their own. Fortunately, no one there to collect Cyrus, so WAG gets to recover their teammate, and Kagendra have lost the opening fight.
Yeah, and that's not exactly too good of a look for Kagendra, right? They need to be able to recover from this, but while this fight is going on, looks like Kodak as well as GOW are currently in odds at with each other as well. He's got to make sure to land these shots, but he's already got the Cassie on him to protect him, forcing out that glue wall and immediately looking to close off the angle.
And it seems like he's willing to fight this as well. You take the extended fight, you get a knockdown, Tatsuya gets resetted, and then suddenly that snowball effects will get going. But Kagendra are doing a pretty good job of doubling up, but they run into X4 instead with the P90 in hand. X4 ends up taking out both of them with the help of PSL1. And Kagendra now only left with one survivor, CT7 on the roof.
He's hiding there. I'm not sure whether he's able to get his teammates back up in that time or whether or not he's got the resources considering that he's on the roof. Now, he might be able to find an initial pick here. The vending machine is right smack in the center, and WAG, they're just crawling over that POI, and PLS1 does spot him on the roof, will take the shots, doesn't have a long-range weapon to go straight for the headshot. No scopes as well. Got to do it the good old-fashioned way.
And I don't think CT7 has enough points to get a revive. There's literally a vending machine right there if he makes that leap of faith, but WAG, with that information, more than enough for them to confirm CT7's location. It's only a matter of time before Kagendra gets wiped out in 12th spot. every single angle covered by WAG.
What?
And yeah, just taking the time. I don't think CD7 is going anywhere.
Yeah, he's not, but now quickly caught over Falcon thirding. Oh, Kagendra ends up being eliminated as soon. We didn't want to watch the execution at the very end. Thanks to our observers keeping it PG-13. Falcons, now, this is a third coming in against GOW and as well as their early fight against Todak. And it looks like going pretty well for the Falcons, right? Having not to revive any of their members, finding 2 eliminations already, and Trap still here, really pincering GOW in a tight spot.
They might even run into Evos. In fact, Coach Hill did end up taking Cyrus out of the equation, so WAG needs to kind of find a pit stop first. They never really had much time to stock up after the earlier contact made with Kagendra. And just Rasha, quick snipe onto PLS1. You can never count this Wonder Kid out.
Wonder Kid still doing work for now. Come back to the 3-way battle here. GOW, last few members still. Demon trying to buy as much time as possible as Noki. Now back with Todak after getting loaned for EWC. Taking control of the POIs is always a good idea, but if it gets collapsed down, could be an attack from Falcons. They quickly take him out. The shotgun is still relevant. You just gotta have the accuracy. Kiroro ain't happy about this. Sees the kill get stolen away from him. He can't do much about it. Throws the Riptide Rhythm, and you see Falcons just making sure they control the height of the area before making their way down.
There goes the UAV as well, shot out by Team Falcons. Well, it comes up to where Limit is positioned at. Seems like Falcons have a lot of long-range coverage. Vitality, well, Bigatron by Vitality in the vicinity too. Those gunshots are going to end up attracting another third party. With Trap and Noki being taken out, Trap gets revived. Falcons, if they can make quick work of Todak, they might still have some time to stock up and resupply for the next contact. Roro finds Fires, and Peter will confirm that one.
Finds it quick. Gotta make sure these interactions are fast. Don't want to give it an opportunity unless they want to let this team farm up. Hunt this team down to farm up some elimination points. I'm pretty sure Peter spotted his. Yep, he notices it. He sees the shoe sticking out of the door, and Vanels goes for the 1v1. Quickly dashes through the blue wall. Instantly on fire, comes up to follow up. Good kills here for the side of Falcons.
Too many bodies to take care of. Todak still in the game. They were able to, I think, revive Traps early on, so he did end up relocating with the drop. Expand also having to go for a couple of revives on their own. WAG fully recovers. At the end of the day, Cyrus still didn't get taken out. He only got incapacitated. They did bring him back up, so they escape Evo's Divine, and they now make it to Intellect Center, get some purchases from the vending machine, sends out a UAV just in case anyone is to the north side, which I think, according to the radar, should be clear of any threats. WAG on a solid start.
Very solid start indeed. Still running the Tatsuya on their side. I'm wondering if they also have an Oscar alongside to make the lineup really aggressive, but we'll find out later. As On Fire get picked off here by Adam on the opposite end, forcing a quick revive onto On Fire, but Falcons need to reposition. They've already got 5 eliminations as we see Limit at least throwing suppressing fire back and even finds a trade.
That should give Onyx Olympus a bit of a warning shot if they decide to continue pursuing this. They have someone taking up that freeway on top, which could give them an advantage, but Falcons are relocating. That could be Limit being sent out far and wide just to get more intel. WAG reunites with Evo's Divine right now at Intellect Center. It seems like Evo's Divine have caught up, and this could be a 4v4.
Intellect Center is looking very hot right now. We see that Expand is down south, far from the action, but could hear the gunshots and make their way over. WAG doesn't have a lot of play space, and Quay, currently in a really tough spot, has to use the Rebel Rush to get on out of there, repositioning towards the stairs where the rest of his teammates can cover him. As they already find Cochil, they're looking for that top spot and straight away as they get walled off. Evo's Divine making sure that there's not enough space for them to actually take, leaving Cochil left to dry. There's no way to pick him back up without taking some damage. They're going to try still, making sure that they have a double flank set up ready. Ray is able to pull the attention as we see the rest of the members from Tigray start moving forward. AimGod is able to bring back his teammates in the time as they lose out the clash.
I feel like Evo's Divine should have made a decisive call whether to take that fight or to retreat. They really were trying to get the teammates back up, and maybe with the Diva, that would have worked out, but unfortunately that was not the case. A kill or to put out onto Russia too. So they definitely know where he is. His back is sent towards X-Board. 2 shots would do the job. Russia gets knocked down. This should be the elimination of Evo's Divine. Unless they found a couple of revives, seems like that is the case. So Evil's Divine not back just yet. Imgon managed to make an escape. Evil's Divine lives on, but WAG have 9 points under their belt.
They do, and their setup having two ways to kind of jump on in, having the Oscar alongside of the Tatsuya makes it really difficult to have stable information. And I think that's what Evil's Divine was trying to figure out. After their first member got picked off, they're looking for the recovery. They tend to play a little bit more passive in the 3v4 type situation. But man, WAG really showing their fangs.
They really are, and that's why I put my faith in them. But I want to see that long term. Right now, game 1, they can have a good game 1, but in the long run, I hope WAG keeps this up. PLS1 and X4 have been phenomenal members of the team, with PLS1 being the latest addition, and really showing some great results. But on the other hand, with Expand finding a freebie onto Kochu, Evil's Divine continues to struggle this round.
Expand gets a freebie this time, a good elimination point to secure for them. They've been hovering around Farmtopia for a while. They heard the initial gunshots. They stayed on the outer part of it, and now they're looking to gatekeep. Because now we finally get into that second ring, and it's starting to progress into the third. As we see, once again, we're just following WAG just kind of mow through the lobby so far.
Yeah, did they... Not sure if they spotted that Evil's gonna get revived. But on it, they also get themselves a freebie. That's Aim God gone. So this revival game for Evos continues. Kind of a reenactment of what happened at EWC in the second half since they activated Champion Rush. Always tested by the games itself, where they have to play from behind. But this could be too much of a deficit to recover from. 9 minutes in, and they still have not found their footing.
Yeah, they really have it. We do see that Kyung gets an initial shot on towards Traps. I think that Traps has already been revived like 2 times this game already. As Noki as well, coming in from Juan, off screen, getting shot at. At this point of time, we see the teams now finally slowing down. Like again, action from the get-go, right from round number 1, and eventually it lapses into the second ring. And as we see this start to close in, you would imagine that the teams are trying to figure out and start scouting positions for the final spots.
This is why I think a lot of people don't miss the 0 Free Fire, when revives was still not a thing. We would have cut down the team by half at this point if you can't bring your teammates back. Export still has a kill order on him for 1.5 minutes, but WAG are going to run straight into Team Flash. And this is the first encounter they have this game. Team Flash laying low for majority of the round up to this point, but judging by their location, this could be a full-blown fight.
Looks like it is going to be a full-blown fight. The third ring has already been opened on, and WAG, is this worth dying for? I'm not entirely sure, right? Because they're not 100% sure what's going on behind Team Flash, or who else is kind of scouting the positions. They do have the bounty on top of them, and they know it's currently on X4. Just don't know from where. At this point, now Death forced to quickly wall himself up. They're trying to make sure that they keep control over the highway for the time being. And now that they're noticing that the rest of the shots aren't actually coming from them, they identify where the shots are coming from. It's from Falcons' back as well. WAG, they lose their snipers and their entire backline. Tikwe and as well as Cyrus, they've got to play around the naturally built cover from Flash.
That is just unfortunate, because they had a good idea on how to break Flash's defense wide open. In fact, they achieved that with the help of X4 and PLS1. They just did not expect Falcons to come in from behind and wipe their numbers up, wipe out their numbers by half. In fact, they might end up going to Kochu. Cyrus does not know. Kochu springs into life, but there is Tikwe to back up his partner, so Evil's Divine ends up paying the ultimate price out in 10th place.
Just no resources, and unfortunately for Flash, they meet the exact same fate. Not enough resources, Flash getting jumped on by WAG. It wasn't really worth fighting out in the open. I personally feel like it's not, but then again, didn't know what exactly WAG was running with. Let's see, because right now, they're still holding the highest number of eliminations in this squad, as Falcons want to steal that spot by taking them out. They see the landmines on the floor. They don't want to be inside.
Tikwe was able to down on fire, but it's a 1v3, a tall order even for the best of players, and in this case Tikwe is somehow making it work. Guerrero with the grenade launcher doesn't connect, but Limit will, and WAG out in 9th without claiming a single player from Falcons.
Oh, do they have enough time to actually regroup before Onyx actually jumps on top of them from the highway itself? Now we go to a 3-way battle here. Looks like, unfortunately, PR getting blasted on by BTR, and as well as God of Wolf, who managed to survive up till this point.
BTR as well, I think, haven't really made too much of a noise. 4 points at the start. But this three-way fight is them, Pharaoh and GOW, especially Pharaoh, who are in a very interesting position. Ever since that they were known as core memory in spring, they head into EWC looking to have a good chance at least being a top contender, but that only extended up to Point Rush. Grand Finals wasn't really where Pharaoh or the ex-core memory shine, and right now with the same roster, they try to change the narrative. Flies from Wei takes out Koja, and that might just set up a chain reaction, because with Toda willing to stick that finger into this, BTR will try to rush expand.
And they're trying to clear out this bottom side. Juan is doing a great job on top of Koja, just eliminating the squad lightning fast. Blitzkrieg tactics deployed on the bottom floor. As now Falcons trying to take out Onyx, a little bit of revenge after they were in the middle of their own pickings in the afternoon. Limit already taking them out real easy here. Onyx the next to fall. Falcons determined. It did cost them a member, but they have 17 eliminations already. If WAG were mowing down the lobby, these guys are sweeping everybody else underneath the bus.
Yeah, they ate and licked the plate for sure. BTR also got 4 more just now, just by taking out Expand, so 8 points for them. GOW and Pharaoh continues to have this standoff. And good news for Falcons, they managed to somehow find a revive. Kiroro gets brought back. Oh, as Rip finds a shot on the Defiance. No confirmation there, but it does force Todak to stay in the blue a little bit longer. And the blue is going to start hurting. With Dian chipping in, Todak will have to make an executive decision. There might be a world they have to give up Vidals and try to push on forward. Because staying in that blue, the longer they do so, the harder things get. And with Noki getting wiped out, chances are growing slimmer.
It's growing very slim. Everybody had the same idea of how good that spot was if nobody deals with it. And now PR need to deal with GOW. They've already found that first initial picking. Time reversal as well, as Demon jumps right in, tries to take him out as soon as possible. And the rest start to fall as we see PR completely jump outside of the building to take the fight to them. Rip, he's still alive though. He's going to try and put some damage to it. Forces Jump to go back down, making sure that he's taking as many alongside with him before he bows out.
A good attempt to keep himself healthy with the inhaler, but the blue hurts a bit too much for him to stay alive long enough to survive the danger zone. Falcons 17 and counting with PE Sports on their radar. A full wipeout will bring them to 21 as Nero hits the big nail to Kiroro, and that's not the start you want as Falcons. All of them start to fall, and PE Sports looking to make quick work of the Falcons. On fire left, Cougar somehow decides to join the fire. On fire gets wiped out. Now Cougar's going to be next on the docket. PE Sports with 11.
All right. So they're both playing on low ground, looking towards high ground to see whether there's any vantage points they can take care of. Right now, BTR really strong, playing on that outer side of the blue as it slowly rotates to take the high ground and also deny space from PE. We see that Nero wants to catch the tail end of it. He is paired up with the Cassie right now, so he needs to be upfront taking that damage. And Kyung, the first to fall. Nolan taking advantage of the situation as we see that Lao Ho goes in with a flank onto Juan's side, forcing Koja to fight off on by himself. He does get a bit of help from Juan's side. Nero eventually it goes down as Nolan and Lao Ho start working together. This Cassie is keeping things so alive, and they take out the rest. LBT forcing it into a 2v2, 2v1 actually. He gets the initial revive. Nolan chillin', waiting. Lao Ho goes for the turnaround.
What?
3 for 1, gets the pick, and now with both down, Nolan and Lao Ho wins out the final bout.
Incredible stuff from PE Sports. First it was Nero with a sharp opener in the final fight, but Nolan comes through, threading the needle. There was 2 glue walls lined up side by side, and he found that gap to finish off the rest of BTR with the final 2 shots. Because BTR, they were looking pretty good. They get that revived off, it would have been a 3v2 in favor of the Indonesians, but Nolan, the latest addition to PE Sports, denied that and earns them their first booyah. And I think it's probably enough to temporarily put PE Sports in the first place on the overall standing over RQ Kazu.
They should be in a really good spot as well. I'm curious, well, at the end of that, they had 11 eliminations before this final fight. They probably picked up 4 more, which puts them at 15. So that puts them at what, an extra 27 points?
Yeah, 27.
I think? All right, we'll get confirmation at the very end of it, but this fight, it worked out really well. I initially thought that BTR had the initial advantage, right? Because a lot of resources were used early, but again, the way that they swarmed, making sure that the 2-on-2s were really, really good, and more importantly, Laoho's initial disruption over that back line, that initial flank, really helped them get a powerful position over BTR.
Yeah, Laoho really creating a diversion, a distraction to really split the attention of BTR members. They had no idea where Nolan was, and that was the perfect opening for PE Sports to take that round away from BTR. Bit of a throwback to BTR's previous experiences where there's so many close shave, but I gotta say this round it's a pretty good start for Bigatron by Vitality. All things considered, this is their first round after all.
Very good. I mean, considering how everything kind of panned out, definitely they probably wanted to win that last clash to kind of secure a lot more points. But I think the momentum is already starting to build up, right? Especially for like Falcons, they're walking away, and WAG, they're walking away with like a ton of elimination points.
Yeah, they truly are. I think Falcons just off of that probably got like 24 points in total. 17 eliminations. They were out in the 4th place. So yeah, 24 points as an opener. Not too shabby overall. Even for WAG, who I think this round probably shot them up to top 6 if the calculations are correct. So strong start from the teams that we predicted are going to have in the top 3 at the start of the show. The only team that is still struggling, unfortunately, is Evo's Divine.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it was really rough for them. It felt like a lot of teams had kind of covered the areas after the initial engagement, making sure that their revives were always staggered, and I didn't think that they had a full squad walking into the 3rd ring. It was only just bits and pieces of them, but I gotta give it up to the Vietnamese right now because they're playing hyper-aggressive. It's great to see that they're willing to take on these fights very ideally, especially against some of the best that we have here in Southeast Asia.
And also a good time to talk about X-Bor's slight role change as well, right? Previously, he was one of the rising snipers of Vietnam. In fact, I think at one point we even put him up onto the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Legends, with some of the best snipers we have in the league. Right now, his role change is definitely settling in, but the MVP for Game 1 goes over to Nero, running that Cassie. Again, he was the one that got the opener on BTR, the final fight before the rest of his team closed it out.
Yep, again, doesn't really have any other, his setup isn't designed for him to be the, combat augment specialist. You usually leave that up to your rusher, but the fact that he can open up these opportunities and find 3,400 damage already looks pretty good for him, right? 7 knockdowns as well. He's just part of the squad.
Oh yeah, he has been a long-standing member of PE Sports as well, so really liked what they brought into this opening round. Even when you look at the overall stat, right? Nolan having 6 eliminations, 1.7k damage, so a lot of that conversion is a lot of efficient conversion, but a lot of it came from Nero laying out the groundwork and helping the rest of his team kind of collect the necessary points.
I mean, considering how the rest of his team is doing as well, really goes to show, hey, he is finding a lot more picks than anybody else. He is finding a lot more opportunities to actually finish off targets, right? Especially since they're running the Homer instead of having the traditional Riptide rhythm to start blowing down glue walls. I guess Oscar kind of opens that opportunity for the team to kind of rush in as a squadron and chase down lacking members. Anybody who's just a little bit slower than the rest can get clipped by the Homer, and then they just swarm them.
And I think that's one of the few differences PE has compared to a lot of teams out there that who prefer the Skylar compared to the Homer, but it does give that information regardless. Game standings after round 1, PE Sports with the Booyah and 15 elims places them at 27 points. Falcons getting 24, BTR 21. So the top 3 teams really putting in a lot of that groundwork. A slightly top-heavy round, but that's also because we WAG and Onyx, who were about to get their engines running, ended up running into one of the top 3 teams.
Yep, and I think it just means that a lot of teams are going to have to start adjusting on the fly, and that's why this league format is so good, right? It's never just about how good you can do within that week itself. It's about adjusting slowly as the game maps go by, and more importantly, as the days go by. At this point, I would imagine that Falcons are going to be leaving very satisfied with this. I do hope that Onyx Onyx will look to reinvent the wheel a little bit more, right? Because it felt like both Onyx as well as Falcons had the same idea that they wanted to chain their thirds together throughout the map to eventually build up into getting into the third and fourth ring, where I think a lot of teams would have slowed down at that point.
Yeah, we did have that small window in the middle of the round where teams started slowing down, where they were not running into a lot of their enemies. We had a three-way standoff even between Pharaoh and I think two other squads. So it's a beauty of Nextera, right? Again, neutral ground, teams that we don't really expect to pop up. Sometimes we'll use Nextera as a buffer, and PE Sports took full advantage of that.
And as long as we see the teams, build up not only momentum, but as well as just to see whether or not this RNG map is going to kind of stop building up that momentum from what we were used to when the maps were very sequenced, having the final map before we got Solara being the RNG map. We'll see whether or not that's going to be the same for today.
I personally do hope that when we get to Solara, it's going to be another one of those Nextera effect. I think Bigatron is pretty good on Solara as well. For some reason, this team is good on the newer maps, but I think we get Solara on round number 5, so plenty of time for these teams to get ready. If I'm not mistaken, the upcoming map should be Bermuda, right?
Yes.
Or Purgatory. I think it's like yes, either one of that.
It's Purgatory and then Bermuda.
And
so
then
technically
Bermuda.
You're correct, yeah. But with Purgatory, at least, with a little bit of the infighting within Nextera, we shouldn't expect that as often in Purgatory. It's a much bigger map, much more play space to actually have. And I think that, with the changes to how quickly the ring starts to shrink, the amount of size that you get off of the third ring alone really forces teams to get into fights and start looking for final spots by ring 4, ring 5.
I think a lot of teams also are starting to adopt the whole playstyle of, depending on the team identity, I think teams like Falcons, WAG, they are teams that are willing to take the fight, right? For them, it's all about the snowballing effect. But when you look at teams like EVOS, they are very used to playing from behind. Teams like RRQ, Todak, Expand, I think more to Expand than it is to Todak, that they don't mind playing it slow, and then they come alive doing it in the later stages of the game. Both have the pros and cons, right? If you go aggressive, the cons is that you might end up losing and getting wiped out, or you get yourself into a horrible position that you cannot recover from. But playing it slow means that when you have to take on big fights, you might not have as much resources as those who have been steamrolling their opponents.
Absolutely. And I think, speaking of setups, we're seeing that a lot of teams are favoring, initially we saw coming into EWC that having a little bit of information to work off of while still having some kind of combat ability always is going to be the case. We saw a lot of Cassies come in. We saw some teams actually opt to not go for the quota, instead bringing the A1 and A1 to kind of double up on their firepower, especially if they do have like an Oscar alongside them to shut down opposing Cassie players, if not stopping opposing opponents from actually utilizing Dimitri, for an example, as a means to kind of hunker down and stay strong.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of some of these approaches from the teams. I think one of the teams that have made the biggest changes overall to how they play is definitely PE Sports. Usually, they used to be a lot more passive, and that also is an effect of them not being confident enough to take on 4v4s. Another team that I personally want to see more of is Kagendra, right? This is the new kid on the block alongside Team Magna. Especially, I think if you compare these two teams together, at least Magna Esports has some veteran players that we recognize, like Ray Miao, for example, the only Filipino player in this league. But for Kagendra, most of them have never been on such a big stage before, and round 1 hasn't really given us enough of a demonstration of this team just because they got wiped out so early on by WAG.
Yeah, with that wipeout, makes you wonder a little bit. Wonder how they're going to look to recover themselves, right? How they're going to actually try to perform and find the eliminations necessary to kind of keep them in the spot. And I don't know, especially if you are a new team, you have to start looking at the setups, because so far our top 3 most used characters, everybody loves a Joseph, everybody loves a Ford, the Moko. Well, I mean, it's pretty popular as of right now, but it really comes down to choice, whether or not you want to have the extra ability or not.
I mean, Joseph is just so good, right? Because you get immune to disruptive effects. Like it can't be slow, can't be marked, can be no skill silencing also you become immune to that, and you get a movement speed boost, and anything that can cleanse you from debuffs is always going to be great. Because Moko for the information, everyone loves good info, and even for Ford to a certain degree, I think, you know, the Iron Will ability to reduce damage taken outside safe zone, such an integral part of the game right now, because a lot of teams opt to rotate late, and when you do so, you are forced to tank the blue, and Ford makes it a lot more, shall I say, affordable to do so.
Yeah, he makes you so flexible. Even when you're having a bad start, you're getting gate kept, he also comes into play. Just for positional points sometimes. Now, we look at the top 3 most used pets. We got Arvan, Beaston, as well as Dreki. Beaston is always a good little fun buddy to have in your squadron. Not everybody needs to take it because Arvan definitely takes more priority, but Beaston definitely helps if you already like to have Alvaro in your set.
Yeah, even now, Alvaro hasn't really been the most popular character overall. I can't think of a universe where you can release a pet that will replace Arvon in the first spot, because Arvon is just way too good, right? And Oculus, you get to detect the amount of players in a single zone, and with such long range as well, it's one of the most useful intel gatherers. Most used character though, this is where the meta really shifts a little bit, with the Oscar now being in the most used in 75 times. Tatsuya actually coming in a close second, which to me is a bit surprising. I thought the gap would be a bit bigger, but we also have Skylar in number 3. After last year, Skylar finally came back into meta.
Yep. I think, you know, the usage of Tatsuya alongside the Oscar is why we're seeing it so close together, right? It feels really bad when you have one without the other, because at the end of the day, what it really boils down to is having that secondary rusher to come alongside with you and really take advantage of flank positions. Because again, at least with the Tatsuya changes, as soon as you use your initial dash, if you find a knockdown, you can actually dash again, which is a powerful tool, especially if you're kind of like plowing through member after member of the enemy squadron.
Yeah, depends on what the teams are willing to trade off, right? Like if you have the Oscar, you get to dash into people, you get to knock them, but you also destroy glue wall in the process. So you pair Oscar with a Skylar, suddenly you have so much destructive capabilities. But again, the Tatsuya reset can come in handy in very clutch moments. Purgatory up next, the biggest map I think in the entire competitive pool, and most teams, I think. For Purgatory, with the fact that BRU isn't playing, I am looking at Team Falcons to see if they can continue to dominate.
Yeah, I mean, they were already looking out for blood in game number 1. I expect nothing less coming into game number 2, especially for a map named Purgatory of all places. Even so, I still think that there is still hope for the rest of the lobby to actually warm up to try and change those standings a little bit more. It'll be exciting to see where Kagendra is going to land once again, because again, with these newer teams, like you mentioned, right, there are notable hotspots that a lot of teams are just known for dropping on. The question is, which door are they going to knock on?
And a lot of times, I think a lot of times on Purgatory also comes down to what teams you're going up against. Like for example, Bigatron loves to drop Ski Lodge. I don't think they've changed it for the longest of time. So we're gonna head into Purgatory just a little bit to see if that drop spot remains the same. I am not a big fan of Ski Lodge at all. I think if you get caught in bad spot, it's most likely your burial ground. But for teams like Bigatron, they're so used to it, and they have proven that they can make use of such a niche area.
Let's see how they're going to utilize it. Once again, everybody, welcome to the Free Fire World Series Southeast Asia Fall Season of 2025. We have a pretty, I want to say neutral. It's a little bit skewed towards the southern side, but it does cut through a majority of the map anyways, mainly following along the river line. It's going to be a little bit difficult to get to Moat House, but you'll still end up towards the outskirts of fields anyways, so it's not too far off.
You see that Bigatron still dropping towards Ski Lodge, but instead of dropping directly on Ski Lodge, they land on top of Forge. We saw Onyx Olympus right beside them, so most of the common drop spots that we're used to hasn't really changed too much. But Evo's Divine right into the jaws of Team Flash. Aim God against Def, and Def trying to run away from Def itself. Aim God on the chase, a couple of pumps to the back, and backup comes through for Team Flash. Evos finds no cigar.
Good choice coming in from Death. He saw that Trogon blasting at him. He's like, nah, I want none of this right now. I'm out of here. Time Turner already expended. They might wait for the next cooldowns of their active skills to come off before getting back into the battle. Aim God, he doesn't mind, right? He's playing Oscar, relatively short cooldown here. He's ready to go. He's also got a Trogon in hand, which gives him extra bit of confidence. But his initial drop coming up with tier 2 helmet and as well as armor are going to be very useful as Arashi and Ray look like they are prepared for the clash as well.
Russia actually goes back down to the ground floor, only with a P90 in hand, not the best long-range weapon. He was making the call to allow both Russia and Team Ray to try and